I've been talking about Sese Le Lame, this new cool word I found. It's an Iwu tribe word, and Philip Shepherd, this book I'm reading about radical wholeness, talks about interoception, which I've been working with for a few years now, and it's just this really beautiful way of learning how to trust the inner speak of the body. And our yoga practice is just perfectly gifted to teach us the way. Yesterday, or the day before yesterday, somebody was telling me about a Netflix documentary called Connected, and I haven't seen it, so I can't speak of it, but apparently it's a documentary about how all things are connected, so of course I want to watch it. And she was describing how this one piece of it, there were scientists that were studying these birds who lived in hurricane territory of some kind. I don't know what bird or where they were living or what. But apparently the years when the hurricane season in the end of the summer was worse, these birds earlier in the season would migrate much earlier away from the area. And then in years when the hurricane season was not as bad, these birds stayed longer. And, we had this conversation about how do these birds know that this is what's coming down the pike? And, a lot of what we have lost as humans is this deep connection to the natural rhythms of things. And some of it, we can change. Some of it's much harder to change just because of the systems that we've built in our world. But it's a worthy goal to try to cultivate a level of intuitive awareness that can support us in our well-being as well as the people around us. So think about ways in which, maybe a time that you didn't follow your gut, that there was some instinct that you had and you didn't follow it. Because to me, that's the second piece of this. So there's the awareness of interoception, the feedback that we're receiving and how we interface with all of what we're experiencing, the connection we have with all things. But then the second piece of that is trusting what we're receiving. And that I think is sometimes the harder part. You can get these intuitive sensings like, I should go this way, or something's wrong with that, I need to adjust that, or, fill in the blank. There's a million ways that our intuition guides us. But oftentimes it's not learning to trust those impulses. So think about a time when you didn't trust an impulse that maybe you should have, and small or big consequences resulted. And then also think about a time when you did trust your instincts, when you just didn't go down that dark alley, for the quote unquote expression. But what time did you really trust something and follow a path that maybe you didn't have any reason, you didn't have any logical reason to follow that pathway in your mind or in your actions, but you did, and it led to a really beautiful thing. So risk and intuition and trust, these are all interfacing when we're trying to make decisions that sometimes are difficult ones to make. And I think our ability to connect with everything around us is really being hindered right now by the way we are living. So how can your yoga practice support this interoception, this capacity to trust the inner speak of the body, to listen and trust the inner speak of the body? And how can that help you? How can your practice help you to engage in the world a little bit more dynamically despite the challenges that we're facing? So that's just what I've been musing about so in my head. So let's go ahead and close your eyes and sit up straight and tall. And interoception is something as simple as paying attention to the way your breath feels moving through your body. So there's layers and layers upon layers of interoception, this capacity to feel the inner body. Sese Le Lame, feel the inner speak of the body. That's what the word means, the Iwu word. I don't even know if I actually said the word, but it's Sese Le Lame. And it translates specifically to feel at the flesh inside. And really what that means is just feel for the inner speak of the body and trust it. So let's find the breath. Notice the ways that maybe you have tension in your face or in the grip of your throat or in your chest or diaphragm. Is there anything binding your breath that's preventing you from having a full experience of ease around breathing? How can the back body be a part of your experience? Something as simple as finding the places within us that we cannot see, that we cannot touch. So seek the inner knowing of what the back ribs feel like as you breathe. Even feel the back edges of the diaphragm attaching to your rib cage and what they feel like as you move. Is your spine tall and supported? Do you feel tense? Do you feel easy? Do you feel slumped? Do you feel stable? What do you feel? I'm just throwing out words, but I guess a better thing to do would be just to ask, what do you feel? And if there is something you're working on, a decision you have to make, or conversation you have to have, or something at work that you are, kind of mulling over, ask your inner speak to guide you. Let this be an intention for your practice today of opening up the channels of knowing the inner self, integrating mind and body instead of just trying to use one or the other. Feel your groundedness. Feel the way you are touching blankets or the floor. Feel the weight of your legs. Take a moment to release tension through the back, the belly, the pelvis. Breathe low. And place your palms together at your heart. And bow in. Offer an intention specifically. Maybe it's around intuition and listening to the guidance within. Maybe it has something completely not to do with that and you're just finding your way in something. Let's release the hands and come onto your back. Okay. All right, so as you lie down, let go of expectations of your practice. So there's nothing to do, there's nowhere to go. There's just to feel, there's just to be inside. Stretch your legs, stretch your arms, and lengthen through the sides of you. Stretch the right side, stretch the left side. Just get into the spaciousness of a little bit of a back bend. What does it feel like to have that sense of arc in your thoracic spine just a little bit? How does it impact your breath? How does it impact your nervous system? And bring the knees into the chest and rock around a little bit. Okay, so swaying from side to side, feeling the back of the body. Roll all the way, not all the way onto your side, but get the shoulders involved in your roll too. Instead of just moving your pelvis, see what it feels like to land on one shoulder blade and then land on the other shoulder blade. And then come to a neutral back. Feel your shoulders, feel your spine, feel the back body on the floor. Circle the knees, keep them together, circle them a few times. And then circle them the other way a few times. And then your right knee comes into the chest, left leg is long on the floor, wiggle out your toes, get your bare feet on. So imagine that the soles of your feet were as conscious and aware as the palms of your hands. And then change sides, left knee into the chest, right leg long on the floor.
Feel the deep compression. Maybe it's not so deep. Maybe your hip doesn't like going super deep. So just go where you go. Trust your boundaries. Part of learning the inner speak of the body is being kind to the body. If you are unkind to the way your body wants to be moved, how do you think it's going to give you some good feedback? It's going to give you some sirens possibly. And then let's bring that knee back into the chest. Let's open up the knees away from each other and bring them back in. So just finding what's happening in your hip joints. What does it feel like? Does your pelvis move at all? We're going to get into the hips a little bit today. So how does it feel in your sacroiliac joints when you do this? How does it feel in the hip joints when you do this? And then let's pause just in holding the knees wide apart and find just the right landing spot. So do your knees want to be closer toward your ribs or further from your ribs? Just find a comfortable place where you're at your range of motion, your max range of motion, but you're still very comfortable. All right. Find your breath and now roll your ankles while you're here, while the knees are apart. You can concentrically move them, in spirals that match each other, whatever feels good. All right, and then bring the knees back into the chest, and we're going to put the feet down onto the ground. So take your arms out to the sides, windshield wiper your knees left and right. And we're just getting into a little bit of movement in the outer hips and to the back a bit. Feel free to stretch the opposite arm away. Feel free to move your head, turn your head, find whatever you're going to find. All right, and then this is kind of a big twist for the beginning of class, so be very mindful. You can take a block to put underneath your knees if you want. We're going to drop knees over to the left, pick up your left foot and put it to the outside of the right knee. If you don't want to go very far, stick a block underneath your knees or leg somewhere to be a stop gate. And as your left foot lands on the outer right thigh or right knee area, what are you feeling? So just enjoy whatever stretch is happening there, getting into the outside rim of the pelvis a little bit. Deep breaths here. And then lift the knees back up. Separate your feet, windshield wiper again. Notice if there's, any residual. It's a big stretch, especially a big stretch this early. So notice what that's like for you. Drop the knees over to the right, pick up your right foot, put it on the outside of your left knee. Use a block underneath your knees or legs somewhere, anywhere that you feel like they can land so that you don't go too far in the twist. Find your breath. How does this side feel different or similarly to the other side? Dive into the sensations of the body. How is your low back feeling right now? Is it pushing up high off the floor? Is it melting toward the floor? Try to have a nice neutral curve in the back. And then go ahead and lift that up. This time, instead of swishing, grab your knees, bring them to your chest, and back to our rocking left and right here. And just notice how the impact of stretching the outer hips, what kind of impact that had in your sacrum, your sacroiliac joints, and your low back. All right, take a deep breath in. Starfish, open things up. Exhale, knees into chest, chin up. Let's do that one more time. Feel free to squeeze. If you're a pandiculator and you like to kind of squeeze your muscles, feel free to hang out in a good old squeeze for a moment. And when you're ready, change directions. Feel free to hang out in a good old squeeze. Pendiculations where you squeeze and open, squeeze and open. This is good for resetting a lot in your nervous system. Let's go ahead and roll over onto your side. Come into child's pose and put your knees together. And just feel the back body in this position. So depending on your knees, you may not get very far down to the earth. And if you're very flexible in your knees, you might be able to really melt into a snug up child's pose. So find comfort no matter where you end up. And the arms can go up, the arms can come down. Where are you happiest? In your shoulders, in your breath? And now if your head is resting on the floor, if you're lucky enough to have that kind of range of motion in your hips and knees, go ahead and rock and let the forehead melt on the floor. A little massage for your forehead as you just rock back and forth. Let this be a massage for your brain, telling the brain it's okay to not go into the future or the past. It's okay to be right here and live with the body. Synchronicity with the body, wholeness. All right, let's come up onto all fours and start moving the spine. So arching and rounding the back in whatever way you have access to your spine. So especially pay attention, well, just first pay attention to the whole spine. Just find what you're finding. Maybe you want to move your head around. Maybe your neck is a little stiff today and you need to do some range of motion there. Maybe the thoracic spine is where you want some range of motion. So you can step away from just the cat-cows and move into any type of movement pattern that's right for you. Feel free to circle the pelvis. Feel free to sway from side to side. All right, then we're gonna try to imagine that you're a fish moving through the sea. So maybe I'll turn this way so you can see. So let your whole spine kind of move side to side and try not to control it. Just let, think of like what it feels like to hold one end of a rope and flick it and have that movement pass through the entire rope all the way out the end. Just see if you can feel that that's happening a little bit in your spine. You might originate the movement in your crown or tail, but it flows through the rest of you. And then pause in a flat back for a moment. Inhale, lift your right arm up in the air. Exhale and slide that shoulder down, finding a twist. Notice what the pelvis wants to do. Does it push off to the left? See if you can keep a sense of the inner thighs rolling back, the femur bones moving back, everything's balanced over the knees. The head is relaxed so you can gaze toward the floor as you breathe into the ribs. And inhale, reach that arm all the way up in the air, place the hand down onto the ground and change sides. Left arm up, spin that one under, find the place you want to be, so gaze toward the floor, let the neck be soft, the hand on the ground can have a little effort to stabilize you. Do your hips want to push off to the side, see if you can keep things in a neutral plane. How is your breath here? Is there a way for you to ease up something so the breath can flow? Okay, great. And then inhale and reach the arm up to the sky. Place that hand down onto the ground and come to lie on your belly. Put your arms wherever you want them. They can be down at your sides, out. You can turn your head. Your hands can be under your forehead, however you want to be. Just get the sense, feel first, you're everywhere you're touching the mat. So can you feel on your skin on the mat or your body on the mat? Can you feel the contact with the floor? And now imagine and visualize the back of your body. See if you can, you probably have seen the back of you in a mirror before, so imagine what the back of you looks like. Maybe you have a cool mole on your shoulder or something. Visualize what your skin looks like on your back. Visualize your vertebrae, your shoulder blades in the back of your body. Maybe the way your hairline is in the back of your skull. Just try to use your inner eye to see the outer back body. And now let's feel the inner back body. So feel the breath. Turn your head the other way so you have a shared view. Feel the rib cage. See what it feels like as you breathe. Feel the movement in the back of your body. Feel the space between your ribs and your pelvis in the back of your body. Sometimes, we call this the kidney space, even though your kidneys are actually higher. They're more under your rib cage. But feel the space between your ribs and your pelvis.
Notice all the muscles that are there. There's a lot of muscles in your lower back. There's a lot of fascia. There's a lot of ligaments. Just check in with all you're feeling and then travel down a little lower to the sacrum, the sacroiliac joints, where your sacrum meets your pelvis. And try to sense. Turn your head one more time if you want. Sense what the breath feels like in your sacrum, or is there any movement in your pelvis as you breathe? Can you visualize the sacroiliac joints? And now travel down through the back of your legs. See if you can sense the backs of your legs, your hamstrings, the skin on the back of your legs, the pocket in the back of your knee, your calves, your Achilles tendons, the bottom of your feet. Turn your head the other way one last little bit here. See what it feels like to feel your whole back body. Imagine you have eyes in the back of your body. The way we orient with our senses, we have a much more connected relationship with the front of our body because of our vision, because of our orientation to moving in space. Imagine your back as your front.
All right, let's come out of there. Come back up onto all fours. Swivel. Sometimes it's not very comfortable to lie on your belly for a while, so make any adjustments. Swivel through your spine, cat-cows, any kind of movement. And just notice if you have just a teeny bit more awareness in the back of your body. All right, so sway from side to side. Let the low back open. Okay, drop the hips from one side and then to the other side. Those muscles that we stretched open earlier, see what they're feeling like now. Then as you're ready, stretch your left leg straight back behind you, engage. Before you lift your arm up for bird dog, see if you can feel the stabilization of your pelvis with all of your muscles. Your glutes are working hard, but so is your core, so are your hamstrings. And then when you're ready, add on the arm to that and just see what you can sense in the back of your body. Can you feel the shoulder blade hip connection, that cross line in the body? Can you feel the muscles along your spine stabilizing you, as well as the muscles in your shoulder and your glutes, all holding you? And then wrap that to the front of you and feel the front of your body support you. Are you breathing through all of this? And then exhale and place that hand and knee down onto the ground. Change sides. Start with just the leg. And notice if you have greater capacity or a weaker sense on this side of your inner sensing, of your capacity to stabilize or strengthen. And then as you're ready, add the arm to it and reach that arm out. Maybe your arm is more comfortable out to the side if you have a shoulder issue or even back behind you. So you don't have to have the arm in the same plane all the time. You're going to get that cross line with the shoulder and the pelvis no matter what movement your arm ends up doing. Can you feel your breath? Can you feel your core? Do you have that sense of deep stabilization in the back and front of the body simultaneously? All right, and then go ahead and relax that. Curl your toes under and lift yourself up to dog pose. Lengthen through the spine. Take your feet a little wider than you ordinarily might. Give your thighs a little bit of room to inner spiral. Feel some weight. So maybe you want to pedal your feet. Maybe you want to move. Maybe you want to sway your hips. Maybe you want to bounce a little bit. Maybe you want total stillness. Okay, so finding the breath, rooting into the index fingers, the thumb mounds, finding the inner seam of the hands instead of just leaning into the outside edge of your wrists. Can you feel the back body now? Can you feel the sweep of your breath? What does it feel like to inner spiral your upper thighs and feel the sit bones widen? What kind of action does that create for your ability to breathe? All right, and then walk your feet forward and come into Uttanasana.
fold a little bit. Feel free to sway and swivel and move if it feels happy to do so. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and melt back down. Rise up, reaching the arms to the sky or wherever is comfortable for your shoulders. Open the chest up, lean back, squeeze the back body a little bit, and then round in, forward, chin to chest. One more time. Feel the back body engage as you cactus the arms back. Exhale and round, open the back body up. Inhale, reaching the arms to the sky. Exhale and float forward. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and melt back down. Step your left foot back, your right foot stays forward. Blocks are nice if you want them. Okay, so find your way into the posture. Let's start getting into our legs a little bit more. So opening the breath into the movement. Try to stay connected to the inner sensations of the body. So it really doesn't matter what postures we're doing. It's an opportunity to be inside of ourselves. So sometimes that helps by moving slower. Sometimes that helps by moving faster. Sometimes that helps by moving rhythmically. Sometimes that helps by moving unpredictably. So what's helping you stay inside of yourself? All right, so the next time we come to a lunge, let's open up those hip flexors. Stretch through your spine. Reach the femur bone a little, that back leg, reach the femur bone up a little bit more. Widen the sit bones. See what that does to you. When your sit bones kind of knock toward each other, what happens to the pelvis? What happens when you broaden the sit bones away from each other? The sit bones are part of your pelvis. So, you know, there's change in the pelvis when you create those actions. All right, find the breath. Now, one more time, we're straightening our legs. This time, tuck the chin, lift the toes up. You might need the blocks to go higher if you feel a little destabilized. Just let the sciatic nerve on that right side have a good old stretch. And then come back to a lunge. Rise up, crescent lunge, reaching the arms to the sky or out wherever your shoulders are happiest, or hands on hips, anything you want to do. Open up through the hip flexor on that back leg. Can you feel the line of the psoas opening up all the way to the spine? All right, and then release your hands down onto the ground. Walk your back foot forward. Fold in half. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale and melt back down. Feel yourself move to the other side. So now our left foot is forward, our right foot is back. Start to move in some range of motion here, straightening and bending the legs, tucking the chin toward the chest, finding some grace in your movement where, and I don't mean like grace, like don't be wobbly. I mean like grace on the inside, feeling that you have a sense of ease in your movement patterns. All right, let's go ahead and find a lunge when you're ready. Lift that back femur bone, widen the sit bones, stretch your heart forward. How does the side feel different than the other side? Are you more at home? Are you less at home? What creates that feeling of being at home inside of your own body? Is it just the path most traveled, or is it something else? Do you have a sense of stability and freedom? All right, and then straighten your legs, and this time we're going to pick up the toes, squaring the hips, tucking the chin toward the chest. Try not to hyperextend your knee. Can you widen your sit bones here? And then come into a lunge, steady yourself, adjust your feet if you need it. Rise up, arms go where you want them to be. Ribs stay integrated. Think of that bird dog pose we did earlier. So we're engaging the glutes on the back leg. We're engaging the muscles around our shoulders. Feel the length through your spine. Feel your core stabilize you as well. All right, and then exhale and release. Come down onto the floor. Either come to all fours or come to a plank. You decide where you want to be in space. Finding your breath. And then we're going to slowly lower ourselves down to the floor.
Take a deep breath in, open up your chest. Exhale and come back down. All right, find your way back onto all fours for a moment and come onto your back. We're taking just the teeniest of detours. Okay, so we're just gonna feel our psoas muscles a little bit, one of our prime stabilizers for our hips. All right, so 2 feet on the ground. Put your hands on your belly. So befriend your belly. Feel your hip points, the bony parts of your pelvis on the outer rims of your hips. And then just move your hands into that space right in the inner rim of your hip bones. Find your breath, and we're just going to lift our right knee up in the air and take your right hand and push against it. And just see what you feel. This is your psoas muscle at work on that right side. Can you feel the engagement where your hand just was? Maybe you can put your left hand there as your right hand pushes against your thigh. Did you stop breathing? Okay, put that foot down onto the ground. Take the left knee up in the air, press against your left thigh, and feel the muscle deep in your belly working to flex your hip. Find the psoas, the inner sensing of the psoas. Such an important muscle for stabilizing the pelvis, for stabilizing the low back. All right, and then relax. And now bring your arms out at the sides, and we're just going to have a little bit of different movement. So you're going to bring your knees up, feet are off the floor, and now we're going to eccentrically contract that muscle as we slowly tap your heel down onto the ground and back up again, and then switch sides. So notice, try to pay attention, close your eyes if you can, and pay attention to the ways the pelvis wants to compensate. Do you feel like lifting the opposite hip up and hike it toward your shoulder? The body has all sorts of compensatory patterns, like I'll help. So see what you can do to just isolate the psoas muscle. It's hard to breathe when you do this, but see what you can do to stay in the breathing body. Stay in the stable pelvis. Now, if your back's bothering you, stop. Let's all stop. Okay, and bring your knees into your chest and rock around a little bit. So the low back muscles and the psoas are intimately connected. So if your psoas tends to be a little sleepy sometimes, your back can be bothered. Let's roll over onto our side and come all the way up to dog pose. Lengthen through the spine. Let's start to move into some of our standing poses. Lift the right leg up in the air. Feel the glutes again. Exhale, knee to nose, and bring that foot down onto the ground. Rise up and turn to the side edge of your mat. Let's come into warrior 2. So as we come, and remember, hands can do what hands want to do. So shoulders do not have to be so engaged if you're working with the shoulder issue. What would it feel like to try to lift your thigh against your hand now? So sometimes it's a little confusing when you put your hand on your thigh because it's a downward energy. So I wouldn't try that. I would just try to imagine lifting your thigh bone up. Or try to lift your foot off the floor. It's hard to do, but this will help engage your psoas on that side. Turn your head, if you want, toward your hand. Find your breath. And just see if you can access the psoas as you try to lift the femur bone up. Deep inner work of the body. And then go ahead and straighten the leg. And we're just going to ping pong back and forth between the left and right sides. So remember, your hips can turn. You don't have to have your hips square to the front for this pose. So, but whatever your pelvis is doing, let the chest follow. So if your pelvis needs a little bit of a turn and then you torque your chest back, you're not following the rhythm of your spine. So let your shoulders follow the pelvis. And then see what it feels like once you get stable to try to lift the femur bone up. Make that action happen from the psoas muscle. Remember where your hands were on your belly. Find your breath. Drop your shoulders. All right, let's go ahead and come on up and out of that pose.
Turn back to the first side again. This might be a little easier to find the psoas. Go ahead and come into Parsvakonasana. Now, because we have an elbow here, we have something to move against. And try to avoid just lifting your heel up off the ground. Try to get the action of lifting your femur bone. So let your foot yield and lift your thigh into your elbow. Okay. Find that work of the psoas. It's tricky to find it when you're in external rotation, abduction, and flexion all at the same time. It's an unusual pattern in the body to have so much going on at once. Let's see what you can find. Feel how the psoas is intimately connected to the hip. So the iliac is that muscle on the inner rim of the hip bone. Can you sense into there? All right, come on up and let's go to the other side. As we find Parsvakonasana, remember the pelvis can turn as much as you need it to turn. Shoulders are away from the ears. Yield your legs. Enjoy something before you get all detail oriented. Enjoy the wholeness. Feel the long spine. Breathe into the fullness of your body. And then see what it would feel like to lift the femur bone up away from the floor toward your torso. What's doing this? What action is happening deep in the core of your body to lift that femur bone up? See if you can sense the action of the psoas muscle. It's a little different than just a typical flexion of the knee, of the hip joint, which we were doing before. All right, go ahead and come on up. Turn back so bring your feet back and face the front of your mat and find Tadasana. So because the psoas muscles do this, they just lift our knees up, they allow us to walk. We're gonna find them in chair pose. So of course, if you wanna use a block between your thighs to help you stabilize, you can do that. If you wanna have your feet far or together, you decide. And as you come into chair pose, put your hands on your thighs for a moment and just see what it would feel like when you ask your thighs to lift into your hands. Notice which one works first. Okay, so ask your thighs, lift up into my hands. Do you feel dominance? You have one side that's like, yeah, I know how to do that. And one side that's like, oh, I'll follow. Okay. Find your breath, weight your heels, then take your hands away and put them wherever you want them to be. Okay, so anything that feels good in chair pose. Neutral lumbar spine, knees are drawing back. Find the breath, find your psoas muscles deep in your belly. And then inhale, stand up straight and tall, open things up. Exhale and melt to fold forward. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and release, come back down. Okay, step back to a lunge, right foot forward, left foot back. Put your knee down onto the ground. Now we get to have a good stretch in your psoas. Open up your chest. And then as we find the stability that we often find in this, let your front heel and the back knee find each other. So what muscles in your back leg are accessing that? What muscles in your front leg are accessing that action? Inhale and rise up. Find the back body again. Okay, and then we're going to come into a twist. Put your elbow on your knee and let your psoas muscle stretch. Open the chest, the psoas muscle on your back leg. Broaden across your collarbones, hug to the midline. Still have a little flex stretch, so the heel and the knee are still moving toward each other. So even though we're stretching through the hip flexors, we want to engage at the same time. And then release. Relax the hands down onto the ground and come back to child's pose. Just let your hip flexors melt. Finding the breath. In and out. Let's come to the second side. So bring your left foot forward, come to a lunge. The back knee is on the floor. Find that sense of stability where we hug our front heel and back knee toward each other. Find the lift off through your spine. So have both, some extension through that back leg, but we're also asking for stability. Reach the arms up if you want them to be up, or out, or anywhere you want them to be. Notice if your knee falls away, see if you can keep it in line with the rest of the body. Finding the breath. And then exhale and release. Okay, so even though there's a deep stretch here, see what you can do to still have teeniest bit of stability of heel toward knee. And then we're gonna find our way into the twist. So hand on your thigh, other elbow or forearm comes onto the knee. Let this stretch the psoas, but have a little engagement of heel and knee finding each other. It doesn't have to be big, just a little bit of awareness. The spine grows. All right, and then relax. Come back out of there. Come all the way up to dog pose. Take your legs wide again. Turn your toes in this time and let the inner spiral of the thighs happen. Deep breath. Feel the softness, the spaciousness of the belly. Feel the back body breathe. Feel the sensing of the inner body as much as you can. And walk your feet forward. Come into Uttanasana, fold a bit. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and melt back down. Notice if you're a little fatigued in the hip flexors. I hope so. Okay, inhale, rise up, reaching the arms to the sky, finding the breath. And go ahead and place the hands down to the heart. Pause for a moment and breathe. Feel the yielding. It's one of our best gateways to this interoception is feeling the yielding in the body. So close your eyes for a moment, just like we were yielding into the floor when we were lying on our belly. Yield your feet. Soften your knees. Soften the spine. Notice all the joints that you might potentially lock, either your knees or your hip joints pushing forward, or your sacroiliac joints smushing, or your spine stacking hard on itself. See if you can loosen all of those joints up. Become seaweedy, floating in water. Find your breath. All right, we're going to stand into the right foot, and we're going to cross the left foot over. Okay, find your way into a one-legged chair pose. So we're still working with the hip flexor on your standing leg, but finding some rotation in your up leg. Okay, palms can come here, palms can come here, wherever you want your arms to be is awesome. Okay, widen the sit bones again. See what it feels like to inner spiral the thighs. What changes in the sensations of your body when you do this? Can you imagine the femur bone lifting away from the floor again? So activate the psoas on that standing leg to help stabilize you. Breathe deeply. And then come on up, change sides. Put your foot down, have a moment of yielding, of breathing. Then we're gonna find the other side. So standing on your left foot and coming in. So when we were doing bird dog before, did you find a side that was more or less stable in your buttocks? Does that correlate to what you're finding in stability now? Okay, so just notice how you are in your body. Our two sides are very rarely the same. Our balance can be different. Maybe you are more wobbly on one side than the other, less strong, less stable, more strong, more stable. What are you finding? Femur bones back, sit bones wide. So this might make your low back arch just a little bit more. Stay in a neutral curve. Can you lift the femur bone and feel the psoas engage? How's your breath? Are you relaxed in places that don't have to work? Are you enjoying something about this? Or is it all just like, get me out as quick as you can? Can you stay? And then unwind. 2 feet on the ground, arms up. Take a deep breath. Exhale and melt forward. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and release back down. Step back to a plank or all fours, depending on how your body feels. Feel a sense of integration, left and right coming toward the midline. Breathing despite the work, breathing for the work. And then we're going to slowly come down to the ground, so you can always put your knees down first. Find your breath, come up into cobra pose. Exhale and melt back down. Okay, so close your eyes for a moment. We're going to just stretch the psoas one more time. But before we do that, lengthen your feet, stretch your legs, engage through your core, engage a little bit through your glutes, not so much that you're compressing the sacrum. Inhale, and you can come to any pose. You don't have to be in cobra pose. You can choose a different back bend. And then exhale and melt back down. Come up onto all fours. Find your way into some swivels or child's pose, however you want to move. Sometimes child's pose can be really deep after a back bend, so if that doesn't feel good for you, just do some cat-cows. And we're going to find our way onto our backs. Okay, so let's come back to some swishing of our knees, left and right. Just free up any tension in your back that you might feel. All right, so now we're gonna do bridge pose twice. One's active, one passive, unless you have a different plan for your body. Heels are close in. Okay. Take a deep breath in. The first one, if you wanna put a block between your thighs, you can, you don't have to. See what feels nice to you. Come on up and find your way into a bridge. So engage through your glutes. They are not passive recipients of the pose, they're active, but they're not overactive, they're not dominating, they're sharing the burden. So inner thighs are working. To discover your feet. If you're not sure how to access your muscles, try it with your feet. Push your feet away from your torso to activate your quads. Pull your feet toward your torso to activate your hamstrings and glutes. Hug your feet toward the midline to find your inner thighs. Hug your feet away from the midline to find your outer hips. So whatever's lacking, whatever's weak in your body doesn't turn on very well, use your feet to help you turn those places on. Try not to over-dominate one muscle group. The chest is big and broad. Open up the psoas. Breathe. Let your exhale all the way out. All right, and then we're going to come down and rest. Swish your knees left and right and turn your head opposite. So let your neck have some movement too. And then as you're ready to grab a block, maybe you want to do another active pose. Maybe you're like, no, I'm all about the active. Then by all means, go do an active version of bridge pose again. If you're ready for something a little bit softer, you can stick the block on the low or middle height. Don't go on the big height unless you have 2 blocks. So you never want to do bridge pose on a block like this with this narrow little precipice underneath you. This is difficult for your sacroiliac joints to handle. You want to have more width underneath you. So if you feel like you need height, stack 2 blocks like this so that the pelvis goes across the whole thing. I'll show you. So I don't really like going this high, but if you do like going this high, or maybe you're really tall, okay? So this is how you want to do high. 2 blocks stacked on top of each other across the sacrum. And then, of course, you can use 1 block either on the low or middle height. Find your psoas. Find the breath. Breathe into the deep belly. The belly often is the gateway to intuition. It's, we can find intuition in all parts of our body. Sometimes you can feel, the hairs on the back of your neck. Sometimes you can feel your hand moving somewhere that you didn't necessarily direct it when you're trying to catch something. Sometimes you can feel intuition
You can feel it anywhere. But the belly is a big seat of intuition. So as you're here resting, befriend the deep low belly. Now, if you're feeling like you want more stretch on your psoas muscles, put the block on the low height and either stretch one or both legs straight, heels on the floor. If you're doing one leg, just hang out with one leg and then switch. Maybe you don't want to do that at all. Okay, so trust what the body's asking. So the more we listen and then act accordingly, the more we follow the instincts, whether it's this, yoga is such a great way to practice this, because in every pose, we have an opportunity to go deeper, to go less deep, to switch the way we're doing something, to follow a pathway. So there's always ways that you can modify and adjust things to be just right for you. And the more you do that, so I'm going to bring my knees toward my chest now, because that's what's going to feel good in my body. But the more you follow the instincts of what the body's asking for, you're developing this interoceptive skill. And the more you develop it, the more you're able to listen and trust and respond inside the body's needs, the more the body will show you, the more intuition you will uncover. Intuition is like any muscle. The more you use it, the bigger it gets. All right, now lift your legs straight up in the air. If you haven't already made an adjustment, you can always bring your knees in first. I would suggest putting the block on the lowest height for this, but of course you can do what feels best for your body. Now see if you can feel interoceptively what's happening in the blood vessels and lymph in your legs. Can you feel a shift as gravity's hold lessens on your vessels? What does it feel like inside your legs? Bring your knees back to your chest. We're going to slide off the block, knees to the chest, and rock. Grab onto your feet and come into happy baby pose. And notice when you just touched your feet, are they colder than your knees? Do you have a sense that that little bit of time we spent in the leg up the wall pose has shifted the temperature of your skin even? All right, and then go ahead and relax. Feet down onto the ground, simple twist. Hips move right, knees come up and drop left. Deep breath here. Twist open the body. Don't forget the neck, so turn the head. Deep breath in, deep breath away. And then inhale and lift the knees up. Scoot your hips the other way, knees drop up or drop up toward the chest and then over to the side. Deep breaths here. Turn your head, let your shoulder rest. All right, and then go ahead and come on up. So we're going to do Supta Baddha Konasana, but we're going to do it in a slightly different way than we usually do. So I want you to get a blanket and make a, you can either have, this is probably the best fold, to have this. And if you have two, even better. Okay, so whatever you've got for your blankets, I'm going to use two because I have two.
So long hot dog fold of the blankets, okay? And instead of putting these under our back, we're gonna put them under our feet. So we're gonna come to lie down and we're gonna put our feet on the black. This is the other thing I like to do. If you take your mat and put it over top, then your feet won't slide, okay? All right, so now you can adjust, you can move the blankets. The nice thing about the long fold of the blankets is hopefully your thighs or calves, something else is resting beside your feet, so there's some support. If you feel like you need it, you can grab your blocks and stick them underneath your, if your legs are longer than mine and your knees are kind of, or your blankets are short, you can stick the blocks underneath your knees as well. So prop yourself up comfortably so that your shins and feet are a little higher than your pelvis, or at least in line with the pelvis. And then we're just going to come and rest in Supta Baddha Konasana. Make sure your legs are supported. Rest the spine. Feel the back body one more time. Can you feel your breathing coming into the floor? As the back of your body, including your sacrum, the back side of your pelvis, your shoulder blades, your spine, the back of your head, the backs of your arms, anything that's touching the floor, as you melt those in to the ground, yielding. Can you also feel the spaciousness in the front of your body? The open chest and throat for breath. The open belly and pelvis for intuition. Trust what you're sensing in your belly. So you don't have to, there's no need to put any agenda onto the sensations that you're feeling. Just trust your feelings. How does your breath feel in your belly? How does your breath feel in your pelvis? How does your breath feel in your chest? Many people just tune out their bellies. It's a place of denial, often a place of, most people don't like their bellies. So can you befriend your belly? Can you fall in love with your belly? The cool thing about having your legs on here is that transitioning to Shavasana is quite simple. You can kick off the extra lip of mat if you want and just stretch your legs. Readjust the blankets as much as you need to so you can have support underneath your knees. Of course, you can take all this out. If you need to stretch your back a little bit, just bring your knees toward your chest, maybe chin in toward your knees too. Give a good hug or a happy baby. And then re-find yourself resting. And if you don't feel the need to do that, you don't have to do that. It's just if your back needs a little support. Find your way into the deep rest of Shavasana. Now your whole body gets to yield and melt. Feel the openness, not just in your belly, but your whole being. Can you sense your wholeness? Mind, body, breath, wholeness.
Can you feel the wholeness of your connection to the earth? Begin to deepen our breathing. One more time, feel yourself come into that full body breath, the whole feeling of the body is one, mind is one. Let's find some movement. See how you like to come out of Shavasana. And then eventually come onto your side. Come up to sit. As you come into that centered mudra of palms together, can you make a commitment today to trust the inner speak of the body? Ask yourself questions, what is it my body needs to eat? What is it my body needs to, how do I need to move? Do I need rest? Do I need stimulation? Do I need company? Do I need solitude? Can you ask yourselves questions and then listen for the answers? Let's offer our energy outward. Namaste. Thanks, everyone.